A lot of tourism stakeholders were there, and there was one gentleman that stood up in the back during question and answer and said, how come you're not advertising my Bokator classes? So a Bokator class is cultural economy, right?
Yes,
It's a cultural experience, but he didn't know how to market it. He didn't know how to sell it. He didn't know how to get the message out. So he was asking other tourism people in the audience, what's up? So this is the gap that I think is missing, is taking those cultural experiences and making them visible so that visitors can find it and make it a sustainable economy based on cultural experience.
Yes. So thank you so much, sir, for coming here, and I'm very delighted to have you to have interview with Cambodianess. So to begin, I would like you to briefly introduce yourself and also at the same time share your experience before you come to Cambodia. Yes.
Okay, well, my name is Craig. I'm from the United States. My professional history has been in tourism my whole life, and that was what initially brought me here was tourism, working for a small local bicycle tour company, and then eventually Phare the Cambodian Circus as their director of sales and marketing.
For your experience in Phare Circus, so far you have spent many years in Cambodia, so could you tell me like what are the great things that you have learned that this country have connected with your interests, and also your work can contribute back to our country as well? Yes.
That's a good question. And when I first moved here, I have to confess, I really knew very little about the country, about the history, about the culture. It's one of the things that's missing a lot from U.S. education. We don't learn a lot about this part of the world. In fact, growing up, of course, we learn a little bit about the war with Vietnam, which unfortunately impacted Cambodia very seriously, but we don't learn that. So I wasn't aware of that. But yeah, so I moved here about 15 years ago, and it was originally to work for a small local bike tour company, and I was only going to do that for a few years and then maybe move back. But then I met the people at Phare Circus, and that also surprised me, because as Americans think of circus, we think of our old school kind of circus where you have clowns with red nose, fuzzy hair, doing silly things with animals. And so when I first heard of Phare Circus, I didn't really have any interest to go see it because that's what I thought it was. And then they invited me to see a show, and I was just shocked. I was just like, wow, I didn't expect that. And it's kind of a funny reaction that many people have. A lot of people come to see Phare Circus and they say the same thing because they thought they were expecting something different. So when I went to work for Phare Circus, it was just to help the sales team, because that was my background, and I was just going to help them a couple years and then move. But the more I did it and the more I learned about Phare Circus and the positive impact it was having on people's lives, it became a meaningful job. It wasn't just something I knew how to do and could get results. It meant, even though I don't understand how they do, what I did know how to do helped them do what they do. And if people aren't familiar with Phare Circus, it's a social business extension of Phare Selpak nonprofit school, which was founded kind of based on the principle of art therapy, which was another thing I'd never heard about before, and how art can help change people's lives, not just emotionally and psychologically, but with Phare Circus and being able to earn a living, it changes their economics. So young Cambodians from really impossible economic and social backgrounds have been able to transform their lives, earn enough money to get land and build a house, something they never imagined before, or go on international tours. I mean, these are young people who maybe never left their village, and now they're flying around the world performing in US and France and Australia. And wow, I mean, for me, I worked in the travel business. Traveling to another country was not a thing, so I didn't give it much thought. But when I see what they do and what it means to them, I can better understand the impact it has on them. So, in that regard, it made me feel really good. I mean, I don't want to say it's always about me, but I think everybody wants to have a job they love, right? And when you know what you're doing is helping somebody, you love that. And at the same time, visitors who come to Cambodia, they want generally to learn something new, to have an experience that transforms their lives, that they get to experience something they never imagined before. And this does that. You know, people who come to see a Phare show experience something that they would have never seen anywhere else. And the Phare stories are from the performers. They're performing something based on their own life experience. So a visitor who comes here and sees a Phare show is introduced to Cambodian culture through entertainment, through art. And that's another cool thing. So that's why I stayed. I mean, I'm still here. That was 15 years ago, and here I am.
Yes, thank you so much for your contribution to our country. And also from another perspective, like we're looking for the economy and also cultural economy itself. When we talk about the way tourists come here, dine, they're not just looking for the arts around the temple, traditional Khmer dance, but we also have Phare Circus, where people can smile and also learn the story like you have mentioned. So in this experience, do you see the potential for other cultural activities that Cambodia can do in order to catch more attention from the tourists to come, or is it right now, is it still like below the average, or should it improve more in the way that you can see this?
That's also a really great question. And I think it's relevant in that, I mean, people travel for a lot of different reasons, right?
Yes.
And there is a segment of people that travel to go take a picture and post it on their Instagram. That's, you know, and so to them, maybe that's not a deeper experience they're looking for. But cultural experiences are for people who really want to feel something and experience something. And I think this is a perfect match for Cambodia because Cambodia has those kind of experiences. I think Cambodia, of course, it can be an Instagrammable destination. People do that all the time when they're at the temples or whatnot. But in my opinion, I feel like they're really missing what makes Cambodia special. It's really not just that Instagram photo. It's the story behind it, the story behind those temples, or the lives of the people who are living around the temples. So, you know, I think that if we recognize that, if we understand that it's art and culture and history and religion that visitors want to experience, then we can better understand how to package it and how to market it and find the people who want that kind of experience, and that's the perfect match. I think that some challenges are, and rightfully so, I mean, Cambodia has a long, rich cultural history that certainly America doesn't have. We don't have that, you know, so it's hard for some people to really grasp that. But Cambodians are very proud of it, and rightfully so, and they want to protect it. I mean, that's my impression. Yes. At the same time, though, they're missing an opportunity of contemporary culture, that art evolves, culture evolves. So, yeah, absolutely protect the traditional culture, but encourage contemporary culture. And both of those two things together, you make it a much more complete, rich cultural destination if you embrace both.
Yes, sure. So also I want to ask you, like, what is the meaning that we can combine between the contemporary culture, like you have mentioned, the performance and so on, where tourists can expose to this information more easily? Can we do it through tour package or something, or travel package?
You've really identified maybe the biggest challenge here is how do visitors find it? Yes. Marketing is still lacking here. I think the wrong question that gets asked too often is, do we need more packages? Do we need different packages? Do we need new attractions? And you know, that is still a lot of conversation around that, and I think it's not the most productive conversation. The most productive conversation is the question that you just asked. How do visitors find these things? Yes. Because I think Cambodia has experiences that could keep people occupied and entertained and engaged for days and days, if not weeks, but they don't know about it. So the question is not how do we develop more experiences, but how do we let people know what experiences exist here? And marketing is not easy. You know, it takes effort, it takes planning, and it costs money. You know, and those are all three things that can be very difficult. But the one thing I admire a lot about Cambodians, among many things, is they can be very resourceful. So, you know, in the absence of certain things like money, they find a way to do it. So, I mean, I think we just need to build on that and get more people to start talking about the things that are here so that visitors can find it. And I think you see that happening already. I think you see a lot more local content creators that are posting in social media. So what we have to ask ourselves is, how do we amplify that? How do we get that out to more than just their own followers?
I see.
You know, because like when I post something, the people that read it, they already know, okay, Craig's in Cambodia, I already know that.
Yes.
So I would need to say, okay, how do I get somebody else to write about it? Which that can give other people strategies. And not just social media content creators, either local or visiting or you know, international, regular media. You know, you have just last night in the United States, there was on 60 Minutes, which is the oldest, most watched news show in America. There was the episode about the treasures that came back to Cambodia. I was getting messages all morning from friends that had seen that and said, "Oh, did you see this? Did you see that?" Things like that open the door. It makes people aware. These people that messaged me didn't even know that was a thing. They didn't know about the antiquities being stolen. They didn't know about any of that. So any kind of media helps with awareness. And I think if we don't have an organized, centralized, consistent national marketing program, you and I can do our parts. You know, different people, we all have our different audiences, our different strengths. Let's find that way. How do we get the message out? And I'll bring that back to Phare Circus. Everywhere Phare Circus goes, they're promoting Cambodia. So when they perform in New York City and they're holding up the Phare Circus flag and the Cambodia national flag, there's people that are learning about Cambodia that maybe have never thought about it before. So even that's an opportunity.
Yes, thank you. So when I ask you about the cultural economy, I don't think that audience can aware or understand what is it yet. Maybe you can briefly expand what is cultural economies and how can Cambodia sustain and strengthen this more specifically. Yes.
Honestly, I'm not sure I'm the right person to try to define what a cultural economy is.
Yes.
I mean, my background and my experience is in tourism. So I can only imagine that it means the economy of arts and religion and culture and all of that. So you like we talked about before, Cambodia already has a very rich, vibrant, traditional culture. We can encourage and develop the contemporary culture, and all of that represents the cultural economy. So you have small businesses that have created experiences based on arts and culture. You know, people can do like a dance class, a cooking class, because I think very much food is part of a culture, and a lot of tourists travel for food. You know, that's definitely a draw. So, you know, people can have those kind of experiences. Phare Circus has performances as well as workshops. People can do workshops to learn circus art. All of that is an economy that's based on cultural experiences. I remember not too long, well, that was kind of long ago, maybe even pre-COVID, was at a conference, and a lot of tourism stakeholders were there. And there was one gentleman that stood up in the back during question and answer and said, how come you're not advertising my Bokator classes? So a Bokator class is cultural economy, right?
Yes,
It's a cultural experience, but he didn't know how to market it. He didn't know how to sell it. He didn't know how to get the message out. So he was asking other tourism people in the audience, what's up? So this is the gap that I think is missing, is taking those cultural experiences, and making them visible so that visitors can find it and make it a sustainable economy based on cultural experience.
Yes. So from what you're sharing is that we still have the gaps to promote this contemporary arts and other performance that need to well known, not just over local that already know, but other people. So here I have another question that sparked me when you talk about this. So how can other people, like relevant people, help those people to spread their information, expose it to more tourists to come to Cambodia? Yes.
That is the question. That is the most important question I think that tourism industry here is facing. How can people do it? And I think the only answer I can think to that, and I think people maybe will disagree with it. I mean, most people would say the country needs a developed, organized, structured, single voice marketing campaign. That would be the ideal situation. I don't see that happening. You know, I think it's a little bit scattered at the moment. So I think each person can examine what they do and say, what opportunity do I have to make Cambodia more famous? So to give an example at Phare Circus, at the end of the show, and we're very lucky because maybe 300 to 400 people every night see the show that maybe never heard of Phare Circus before. In fact, I think most of the people that come had never heard of it until they got here, which makes me sad because then that makes me think I'm not doing my job. But okay, so after the show, after they've had this cultural artistic performance experience, we make a speech, and I used to do it in the early days, to introduce the background a little bit, to tell them what they just saw, who those artists are, where they came from. And that makes it a more meaningful experience for the audience. So when they leave, they're feeling something. And that's what you need to tap, you know, for Phare. Okay, so we have that fortunate situation where we have 300-400 people a day. So after I did the speech one night, a woman came up to me and she said, "Wow, that was a pretty good speech, but you forgot something." And I'm like, what did I forget? And she said, "You didn't ask them to share." And I just thought, wow, that's such a basic thing. So from that day, at the end of the speech, and after they've been moved by the performance, they hopefully were moved by learning about the artist's story, we ask them, share your experience. So that when they leave, they put it on their social media. They write on TripAdvisor reviews. They write on Google reviews. They tell other travelers. Almost every night we get people that say, "Oh, another traveler told me about it when we were in Vietnam." Okay, that's great. So that's an opportunity for Phare. Every person's business, they have different opportunities, and I don't know that I can give good advice for that, but I would just say that's one that almost every tourism business in Cambodia could do. Be sure you're asking people to talk about you. And I'll tell you, based on that too, people don't care what the business says about their business. Like, of course, Phare is going to say Phare is wonderful, and they're going to go, "Okay, you're only saying that because you're Phare." But if somebody else says Phare is wonderful, they'll believe it. So if any tourism business in Cambodia can get people to write reviews, TripAdvisor, Google, whatever, that's an opportunity.
Yes, thank you. So I also have one last question about the cultural economies, but it's more about your experience. What can you do to make tourists come back to visit Phare Circus? Because we know that, yes, some people may be, "Oh, I experienced it already, and how can I come back to experience it?" Maybe you have some meaningful thing that can touch their heart and bring them back to the circus itself. Yes.
Wow, that's a good question, and it's a complicated question. And I would say that getting that to happen was very difficult. And so let me talk about it from two different things. Okay, domestic market and international market. Yes. I think, and I'm going to make broad generalization. I know there's exceptions. Okay, so there will be somebody that will say, "Oh no, I will do this way." But from what I notice, like for a lot of experiences for domestic market, once they've done it once, that's enough. So I won't give any examples, but they've done it, so they don't need to do it again. With the international market, at the moment, I think very small numbers of return customers. So a lot of people that come from, North America, Australia, Europe, this is like a once in a lifetime trip for most of them. There's exceptions. Some come back every year. You know, we see some of the same people every year, and we're very flattered and honored that they come. So how do you get them to come back?
Yes.
So during COVID, you know, when there was no international market, we thought, okay, how do we do that to get more local people to come? So we tried to make it a more complete experience, not just a show. So we added other features that would keep people interested. So we thought, what do local people like to do? Street food, you know, you have a street food experience. So we changed our dining experience completely from like a sit-down restaurant type thing to street food. We put little stations all over and people could go around. And I think for local market, it was something they were familiar and comfortable with, and that's what they like to do. And we kept it after COVID because international visitors liked it too. They felt like they were getting a local, authentic experience by walking around to different food stalls and seeing the food made and that sort of thing. So, you know, the short answer to that one is just you have to give them more reasons to come. If the reason was only the show, they probably wouldn't do it. We also added a cultural dance performance before the show, like out in the dining area, from some students that are learning cultural dance performance. So instead of just coming to Phare Circus to see a circus show, they come to Phare Circus for a whole evening experience. And I think that's one way people get you to come back, you know?
Yes, so it's back another question again. I thought that was the last one, but this is very interesting. So what are your encouraging words for others, like business owner or something related with contemporary performance as well, that they want to have their return customer or return tourists to come back as well? So it's meant to modernize their package or something more that they can do, because I thought that this is a good thing that you can share and give some advice to them as well. Yes.
I don't know if this directly addresses that, but I think it's coming in on a different angle. People want to experience something. They don't want to just see something, they want to experience it. So if you can look at your cultural experience, whether it's a performance or like a visual art type thing, if you can offer more, and where not just more for them to see, but something for them to do. So Khmer Ceramics is one example. I think they've gone a lot into offering people to join and make ceramics. So it was great for families. You know, families can go there, or anybody. So now they have actually some local artists that are there creating new art with ceramics, and visitors can go there. So instead of just going to Khmer Ceramics and seeing something, you do something. And I think with Phare, that was also part of the approach. Do something. So walk around and look at the food tours. We also do circus workshops where people can go and learn how to do circus. Do something. I'm trying to think of others. Bamboo Stage is another one. So they do like shadow puppets. But you know, the kids and people can go back and learn how to do the shadow puppets. I mean, that's going to get people maybe to want to come back more. They also have a variety of things. You know, maybe just one kind of show is not enough. You have to have different kinds of shows. And that's kind of also Phare Circus. We have, you know, maybe 4 or 5 different shows in rotation. So just because someone came and saw one show once, they come back, they see a different show. It's worth coming back for.